Okay. Next, we are going to move to municipal officials, and I see that George McGonigal is here from the city of Ithaca. Hi, George. Welcome to the legislature.
Hi. Should I go to this one?
Sure.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see Wayne and Marcia's daughter here. Hi, Holly. I'm going to wing it tonight. Imagine that. Things we're working at, we have our monthly meeting tomorrow night, and some of the voting items are, we're going to vote to whether or not to fund a study about the Ithaca gun smokestack to see if it's sound and if we're able to keep it, and hopefully it is sound, but we'll find that out with this study. We're going to vote on new salaries for the mayor, which is going to be a lower salary because the city manager will take a lot of the responsibility that the mayor has now. We're going to vote on common council salaries, which are going to be $5 more than the county legislator salaries.
Well deserved.
And we're going to vote on a template for the city manager position, what their duties are, and how we hire them, and how many votes it takes to hire them, how many votes it takes to fire them. It's a big, complicated scenario that we'll be voting on tomorrow. Things we're working on that we won't vote on tomorrow are 3 union labor contracts, which are progressing well, I'll say, but they're not finalized. We're working on whether the amount of money Cornell contributes to the city, whether they contribute anything. That continues. And we are working on the endless work involved in creating a land use policy for city land that is currently being occupied by homeless encampments. That's all I've got.
Any questions for George? Mike Sigler?
Hi, George. I have a couple questions.
You can only have one.
Just one? Oh, man. The Ithaca gun smokestack, I mean, isn't that, it's owned by the developer, right? I mean, why is it the city's, I mean, if he wants to keep it, wouldn't it be his responsibility to kind of pay for that?
We're splitting the cost of the study. I think the people of the city want to keep it. And there's been talk of actually creating a spot that would honor working people in the city, but also the surrounding area who worked at factory jobs in the city at that site. So splitting the cost is, I think, a valuable investment.
The city manager position, was that supposed to start at the beginning of 2024? Or?
Yes.
So, I mean, that doesn't seem likely that you'll find somebody by January. I mean, it hasn't been posted yet. So what happens? Doesn't the law say it has to start by 24, or does it give you some leeway?
I think...
Not that you'll be there. You don't.
Right. Well, hopefully we'll find somebody by the 1st of January. And if we don't find a permanent person, we'll have to hire a temporary person.
Okay. My last question, I read an article about the wastewater treatment, and it was about $6 million. I mean, I don't know. I talked to a lot of federal guys and state guys. It seems like there's a lot of money floating around for wastewater. I didn't know if the city was putting in for grant money for that, if it didn't have the manpower to do that, if maybe some help could be offered to the city for that. Because it really is, that's one of those things that I always, like I watch the grants come down and I'm like, wow, the city of Geneva is getting X for its wastewater treatment. It seems like that's something that people do want to fund. So I just didn't know if that's what the city was going for.
I'm not sure either, but I'd love to talk to you more about that, because every time we turn around, we find something else that's about ready to give up the ghost at the wastewater treatment plant.
That's every wastewater. They were all about 50 years old.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we will.
You're welcome.
Next is Randy Brown and then Rich John.
Hello, George.
Hey, Randy.
You've talked quite a bit over the last year and a half about the homeless problem and the encampments. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you think the county's role should be in moving this thing forward?
I'm glad you've mentioned that. Where we're at right now is we are talking about having what we're calling a green zone, where it's city property, that we would allow camping. And currently the area we're talking about is behind Walmart and the county transfer station. And that's a big parcel. And there's quite a few encampments there already. And what we're talking about is providing movable trailers that would have real toilets and real showers with hot running water. And in addition to that, hopefully, storage units so people can store their stuff, help in moving people, because people do have a lot of stuff. And what was the other thing? Safe places to deposit hypodermic needles, and other things that would make life easier. The city is willing to let the land be used for that, and prepare the land for that, like with electric and plumbing. And what we are going to ask the county to do is provide funds to basically provide these services. And as you all know, social services is part of the county job. Job's not the right word. So we definitely are looking for help, guidance, like cooperation in setting it up, but also definitely financial assistance.
Let's see here, Rich John, Veronica Pillar, and Mike Ziegler.
George, thank you once again for coming and speaking with us. I realize we only have so many more meetings. You're going to be with us. But
well, you can look forward to that.
I do, absolutely. I wanted to add my voice to those who are saying I think it makes great sense to get that feasibility study for the smokestack. It is clearly part of our history. Good or bad, it's part of our history, and we should, I believe, recognize it and try to preserve it if we can. Thanks.
Thank you.
Veronica Pillar?
Just a clarifying question. I thought the city manager job had been posted, or at least I've seen a brochure with instructions for applying.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Okay, I thought someone said the opposite.
I must have said the opposite.
Maybe.
Like, if you're still working on the job description.
Mike, can you use your mic? Mike, thanks.
I just assume since they're still working on the job description, it's hard to post.
Well, we're voting on it. It's all set. We're just going to vote on it.
Okay.
Thank you, Veronica.
Mike Ziegler?
My other question is, you had said you would like the county to provide funds for services. Do you want us to provide funds for services, or do you want us to provide those services? I know it may be nuanced, but I don't think it actually is all that nuanced. Like, do you expect us to provide money so that the city can do these services? But we already do the services. So you just want us to go down and do the services, right?
Well, there'd be more services than you provide now. Somebody has to be hired to monitor the showers and the restrooms. And we're hoping for county support for that. And yes, there would be one advantage for the county, I believe, is that the services you provide now would be more easily provided in a more centralized location.
So do you think that, I don't want to keep it any longer, I'm sorry, but would there be objection, do you think, from the city council if those services were provided by the county? Like if the county provided the person to drive the showers down there and bring them home at night? That doesn't have to be a city person, does it?
No, it does not. And right now, our DPW is so understaffed that it would be tough to find somebody in the city to do that.
And would the city have objection to the county providing security for those people, our workers, if they're going to be going into the jungle?
I can't speak for everybody on council, but I don't think that would be objected to.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Greg Messy? Okay. George, I also want to make sure, I did send a personal statement on behalf of the chair for a response to the homeless plan that you guys had put out. I want to make sure that you and your colleagues had received that. And it talked about the duties of the county as noted with state and federal law, the different services we provide. And I'm not sure that that would necessarily change, you know, under the idea that you guys have brought forth.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Okay.
I know that from the get-go, we've talked about cooperating. This is too big a job for just the city or just the county to deal with.
I think, unfortunately, the frustration, and I probably will speak for this legislature, is that the Common Council has been all over the place. And there's no collaboration, there's no consensus on how to move forward with the homeless situation in the encampments.
I think that's an overstatement.
Okay, well, I think we can probably agree to disagree on that. And you know, I think we haven't wanted to step on toes, and we've tried to let the process play out. You know, and we've also, I think we've spoken by allocating $100,000 in our most recent budget to helping the city. And the one thing we've asked is to be part of the process. And then once you have a plan, to actually come back to this legislature and talk to us about what your thoughts are and how we could use that funding.
I thought that's what I was just doing. And we also put out $100,000.
Right, I know, but what I'm saying though is that I don't think we've had that discussion. I don't think we've had the discussions to move forward.
I know for a fact that city staff and county staff have had several meetings. I know for a fact that council there's some disagreement about where people should not camp, but there is general agreement that there should be this sanctioned encampment in the Southwest, and that's what we want to move forward with.
I just hope it moves forward because, you know, I think we're all having the same concern right now that as of January 1st, much of your council is going to turn over, and it would really be a shame for all of us to take a huge leap backwards. Because, you know, as we've heard, you know, there are residents that are dying there. There's a lot going on there, and I know you're the first person that people are reaching out to. But we've got to make some movement on this, and I know I don't need to tell you that, George.
No, I agree. I agree.
Any other comments from?
What can I ask you? What do you want me to bring to you next month?
You know, I would like to hear more about the encampments. You know, we talk about red, amber, green. You know, people are afraid to use the word enforcement. Like, where are we going with this? You know, I get it that you want to allow certain people to stay certain places, but the reality is that it's not safe down there. People that live in the city of Ithaca, people that are visiting, they don't feel safe walking on our commons. They don't feel safe walking to Wegmans, to living in you know, even Nate's Estates. I mean,
that's the first ward. I'm very much aware of that.
yeah, you know, and so it's, you know, I think it, you know, it speaks to our community. And, you know, you've lived here a long time. I've lived here a long time. You know, it's a sad state of affairs whenever I don't feel good about my kids hanging out downtown, you know? And I just hope we can move the needle at some point, because I know we've gone back and forth and it becomes very political, and some people don't want to say enforcement, some people do. I mean, we need to figure out where we want to land, and then kind of work backwards if we need to.
That whole argument over the word enforcement is behind us, I'm pretty sure, for whatever that's worth. Yeah, we're anxious to move forward, and even if how we move forward turns out to be partially a mistake, we need to do it and find out. We can't keep going where we're at right now, because it's getting worse.
I mean, I think, you know, and we'll go out for a drink at some point. We've discussed this for probably 4.5 years about going out and talking about this. But, you know, I think, you know, at some point asking the county to step up. I mean, we're facing a budget where we're going to have a lot of really hard decisions in our budget too. And, you know, we're talking about staffing. And, you know, it's not just a matter of let the county do it, because the numbers aren't there. The tax dollars aren't there. I mean, we're facing some of the same struggles that the city is. And so, you know, I think we want to be helped, and we want to figure out the solution to this. But, you know, the reality is it's not just a matter of, like, you know, we don't have the staff in our DPW to do it. Can the county do it? Because I don't think that's an option. I think we're going to have to figure out, you know, real solutions and come together and figure out the money part. So there are a few people that want to talk. Veronica, Deborah, did you have your hand up as well? Okay. And Rich.
Yeah, thank you. I attended part of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, is what's called, right? Meeting the last one where you all discussed the encampment policy at length, and then I kind of skimmed the part I missed. So I'm not qualified to summarize it, but I think a lot of the issues that Shauna brought up and that we've been talking about, the like, where can people camp, and the enforcement word, like, were discussed at length at that meeting. And if I recall correctly, you all ended with, like, you know, giving some direction to staff on, like, what particular to do next. So I wonder if next month what might be helpful is if you bring a clear summary of that meeting.
Okay.
Plus anything the staff has done between then in the past and then in the future.
Thank you. That's helpful. I will attempt to do that.
Deb Dawson and Rich Strum.
Yeah, thank you. George, you said that arguments over enforcement and the word are behind you. The last thing I read didn't suggest to me that you had landed on any particular agreement as to how exactly you were going to regulate where people camped. And so explain to me how that debate is behind the county.
I didn't say that debate is behind us. I said there was an argument over using that particular word.
Well, I mean, you can argue over semantics all you want, but at the end of the day, any kind of regulatory scheme, anything that you set up that is going to require people to be in one place as opposed to another place isn't going to work unless you have some kind of mechanism to enforce it. I mean, I don't know if you want to call it a purple elephant, but you're still enforcing.
Well, currently, it is illegal to camp on any city property. So if we...
but you don't enforce it.
We don't enforce it. No, we don't. And so if we create this green zone where camping is sanctioned with amenities that the county will help us set up. There's two trains of thought, and I don't necessarily agree with some of it, but one train of thought is that it will make it more likely that people move there voluntarily. It is the biggest city property that we're talking about.
That's the carrot,
Yes.
but you also need a stick.
Okay, so the other thing that, and we have not resolved this, and there is disagreement about it, is how do you prevent people from camping in places that currently are extremely problematic, when the things that Shauna were talking about, basically crime, and that's closer to Nate's Floral Estates. And that's also behind Lowe's. So the thinking is that none of this is going to happen before winter. And when winter comes, the vast majority of people who are encamped go to hotels and motels with the state blue, code blue. So as this last winter, for example, everything behind Lowe's cleared out. There was nobody there. And that's when we cleaned up the area behind, or between Brindley Street and Cecil A. Malone Drive with your help. And we used part of our $100,000 to fence that off, and it's no longer being camped on. That didn't solve the problem area-wide, obviously. But I think after the winter, it will be easier to determine where people can and can't camp. And I'm thinking in particular, this is me talking personally, the small city property behind Lowe's, which is where the young man was kidnapped from, will be off limits.
Which still begs the question, how are you going to make sure that it's off limits and it stays off limits? And that, I think that's, for me, that's the crux of this whole problem. But I'm not speaking for 14 people, I'm just speaking for myself.
It's going to be a problem we're going to have to face.
Rich John?
Thank you, Shauna. Yeah, Shauna, I think you summed it up well. And this has been such a long-standing issue. I did want to just make sure that anybody watching from the public knows, George, this has been an issue you've paid tremendous attention to for years now. And I think you've been very consistent in your approach of what you personally would like to see happen, and you've been a strong voice there, and I commend you for that. I did also watch that PEDC, Planning Economic Development Committee, the public comment and then the comment of the members after. And that's where I felt it got pretty confusing. You know, and I found it a bit challenging to understand, was there any real direction that came out of that? I hope that I didn't watch the whole meeting, maybe there's something that developed later, but this is an issue where I believe the county and the city have responsibilities, and we absolutely need to work together. I also think that it's an area where the city has to lead, that the county can't really do very much independently of the city, and we shouldn't. You know, but if the city can find its way through to a clear policy, I'm hopeful that the legislature here, my colleagues, will help support a reasonable pathway. But That's it. But thank you for your work on it, George.
Well, you've worked on it too. And I learned most of this from Carmen Guidi and from Deb Wilkie, who've been working in the jungle for decades. And they know a little bit more about it than the Ithaca Tenants Union. So that's where I'm getting my guidance from. And, you know, I don't have any magic answers. We're just getting started, and we're going to try to get people more comfortable and safer in this sanctioned encampment. And at the same time, support the creation of housing that's affordable and with services, and both the city and the county are working towards that. The conference center next to City Hall is supposed to have 30 or 40 apartments for people who are currently homeless or almost homeless. So it's got to be a multi-pronged effort. And I know, you know, homelessness is not just a city issue, it's throughout the county now. Maybe we could make a law that says rent's $300 a month everywhere. Maybe that would work. I don't know. I will try to come back with a lot more detail next month.
Randy Brown?
George, aren't you glad I brought this up?
I am, actually. I am, because it's on everybody's mind.
And I think it's very complex, and thank you for working on it. As one legislator, I'm anxious to help any way the county is able to do that, and we just need a plan to start from. So, thank you.
I appreciate that, Randy.
Okay, George, I think we've beat the crap out of you enough. Thank you.
No, this is, I don't feel that.
Thank you very much. We
Okay.
do appreciate you.
All right.
Have a good night.
You too.